Hello, hello, guys. We are going to be getting going here in just a second. Glad to have you guys joining in. We are going to, hello. We'll get going right about 2 o'clock. Dr. Steve Pereira, who's one of our other clinicians, is going to be joining myself. And we're going to be going through some different questions and kind of do a Q&A for anybody who has questions that's watching. And we'll be going over just some ways to kind of take care of yourself in the midst of a stressful election time. So glad everyone can join us. I'm going to see if I can get Dr. Pereira here with us. Hello, hello. Along the way, if you guys have any questions that you would like to ask us, should be a little question mark at the bottom of your page, and you can submit a question there. And you also can feel free to comment or chat at any point along the way if you have anything to say. We just ask that everyone keep the conversation respectful and open-minded. Make sure and invite friends if you know anyone who else might be interested in hearing about the topic today. All right. And we also will be recording this, and so that way later on, if anyone missed it, they can watch at a later time. All right, we've got a good crowd so far. So let's, like I said, we'll get going here in just a minute or two. All right. How's everyone's day going so far? All right, thanks everyone for joining us, and we will get started here in just a second. All right, here is my counterpart, getting Dr. Pereira on here to join in. All right, here's Dr. Pereira. Can you hear me, Steve?
Hi, Ken. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Okay, so we've already got quite a few people joining in, so thank you guys all for being here. We'll start off with some introductions. My name is Joanna Vela, and I am one of the licensed clinicians at the Student Counseling Center. And then this is Dr. Steve Pereira. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Jaguars. My name is Dr. Steve Pereira. I am a psychologist at the Student Counseling Center at TAMUSA. So glad to see all of you today, and you're joining us for this live presentation on elections. Tu voz, your vote. So we'll be engaging all of you today, talking about the elections and mental health.
All right, thank you, Steve. And yes, we are so excited to have you guys here. This is actually our first Instagram Live as a Student Counseling Center. We've been new to the world of social media this year with COVID-19. And so we're excited to have y'all join. Kind of what to expect today. We have some preset questions that we're gonna start out with, and we're gonna do kind of a Q&A, answering some questions. And then any questions that you guys have, feel free to push the little question mark at the bottom of your page to submit the questions, and we will get to as many of those as we have time for. We probably will wrap up about 2:45 today. And so we just ask that everyone that's participating keep an open mind, have respect for one another. And we really hope just to have some really honest and healthy interpersonal dialogue today. We know that this is politics in general can be a divisive topic. And so we're really not here necessarily to talk so much about politics as we are talking about mental health and how we can take care of ourselves in the midst of the election season. So I think that's all I have to start off with. Is there anything else, Steve, that I might have missed?
No, I think that's all great. I just want to give a quick shout out to some of the people that are joining us today. TAMUC staff, M. Ibazeta, Mangiano 712, Sapphire Moon Creations, staff, TAMUSA Staff Council, STEM 1982, Staff Council, liked us, Georgie, JA2JA, TAMUSA Delta Chi, Georgie, and then TAMUSA staff. So thank you to all of you, everybody, for joining us today.
Yes. And we will have this recorded for later. So if anyone misses it or wants to share it, you can do so. We'll get that posted later. So I think Steve has the first question.
Yes. So the first question that we have today is, this election year has me feeling tired, restless, and burnt out. Is this normal for me to be going through this? And then Joanna will answer.
Yes, thank you, Steve. That's a great question, and something that we're hearing a lot from students. And it is pretty normal to be dealing with increased stress and anxiety at this time. We've had a really rough year. 2020 in general has been tough, and everyone has been faced with a lot of things that we've never really been faced with before. A pandemic, and then there's been significant racial injustices and just a lot of stress, financial stressors. And so then now we have a significant election, and that's an additional stressor. That's, and I think it's been one of the more divisive elections. So I think it's very normal to be dealing with some uncertainty right now. And it's important to know that you're not alone, and that a large number of people are feeling pretty uneasy right now. So I would say it's pretty normal, and again, pretty expected given the fact that so many things are up in the air right now, and it's kind of an unpredictable time. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything to add, Steve?
Yeah, I think there's just so many environmental things that are also going on around our community that impact us in so many different ways. I know that we all have many backgrounds and many beliefs and traditions and things that kind of help us figure out ways in which way we're going to be kind of taking care of ourselves in this time, right? So if there's anything that you feel like this is like a good way for me to de-stress, like I think that would be like an excellent way for you to be able to engage in self-care. So and I would like just to echo what Joanna said. Yes, I mean, I think the election year just makes a lot of people feel drained in general. There's just so many messages going around and being raised. So I think as long as you are taking care of yourself and you're making sure like which messages are important to you, which ones are not, those are ways that you can kind of manage stress. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thanks, Steve. And I saw the Mays Center joined us. Hello, Mays Center. Glad to have you guys here.
Hi, Mays.
So I have the next question, and Dr. Pereira is going to answer that one for us. And so the question is, how do I manage election-based stress and anxiety?
So there's like a myriad of things that we can do to manage election-based stress and anxiety. The first one is coping skills, right? I think we are all equipped to be able to utilize certain things that kind of help us feel grounded, alert, perhaps maybe even just relax a little bit. For example, there are ways that you can access like mindfulness, which allows you to just kind of feel grounded. You can do some deep breathing exercises. You could also maybe do some coloring, or you could even watch some videos online that kind of do like guided meditations so that you can relax your whole body and do like a body scan so that you're able to just feel more whole and present. We have some excellent resources available on our website. It's called the Zen Den, and there you can access so many different activities and so many different mindful practices that you can engage with to feel more relaxed and reduce stress and anxiety. You can also reach out for support. right? We all have family members, we all have friends, we all have people that we go to on a daily basis for help or for advice. And most importantly, you can use Student Counseling Center services so that you feel like you can have somebody to talk to. We're available Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. We have on-call crisis hours that you can come and utilize services, also from 8 to 5 p.m. Group therapy services. Like I mentioned before, we have the Zenden, and we also have Nourish to Flourish videos on our website that you can access so that you can learn some new skills to reduce stress and anxiety. We also included healthy distractions, so an activity, a hobby, a music playlist that you love, perhaps engaging in some spiritual work, and also just fun activities that you can do with others, right? So I know there's like a whole list of things that we can do, but Joanna, are there any specific activities that you like to do to kind of reduce stress and anxiety?
I've really found lately how important it is for me just to go outside, especially with the days getting shorter. Spending some time in the sun when it's up can go a long way for helping my mood. And so even my lunch today was sitting outside enjoying the sun. And I think that can be huge, especially with the time change that we just had. Now it's getting dark by the time we're like done with work. And so utilizing that is really helpful. And just watching TV, just kind of those healthy distractions of something just to kind of, I also really enjoy reading. So that's one. I'm curious for the people that are watching, if anyone has any things that they enjoy that either a hobby or something that's a healthy distraction for them that helps them navigate when they're feeling stressed. If you do, please comment.
I wonder what Oakley does to manage stress and anxiety. That would be a good one. Oakley, I saw Oakley about it. But one thing that I like to do, I know that today, like, it's really sunny. So during my lunch break, I was able to just go outside and take in some sun rays and a little bit of the kind of like the breeze. And then the air today is dry. It almost feels kind of deserty. So it just feels so good to be out there for a bit, right? I hear that the weather for election day tomorrow is going to be great too. So that would be like a good time for you to just kind of go out and get some sun. Perhaps maybe walk around your yard or maybe around your block. That would be like a really good thing to do. What about hobbies, Joanna? What do you like to do for a hobby?
Let's see. So I'm really intrigued by this. M. Anguiano says that they like hand lettering. I think that's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to check that out. And then I also saw exercise, and Oakley goes for a walk. That's awesome. I'm glad Oakley's getting his exercise in. And then let's see, running in my neighborhood and getting out of the house. Those are awesome. I think exercise seems to be a common theme here. Even if it's just a walk, it doesn't have to be like hardcore cardio, but it really can go a long way for your mind. But hobbies, let's see. I like to do like kind of old lady stuff. I like to crochet and knit. And those are things that just really help my mind kind of disengage. And baking, that's a good one. I also do a lot of baking. I've made a lot of pumpkin pies already this year, so that's probably going to continue.
Yeah, so we see baking, running in the neighborhood, and getting out of the house. Yeah, that's always a good one. Don't forget to wear your mask. We want to stay safe. Storyline Reclaimed. Hi, thank you for joining us today. A hobby, I think that for me, I like to hang out with my family. And so when we're with family, we like to cook out. So I'm usually the one who's like making most of the food. So that's one of my favorite hobbies, is just kind of cook, especially when I get an opportunity to do it outside. And then we also were talking about music. So my favorite kind of music, I mean, I love Latino music. So I will listen to reggaeton, I will listen to Mexican music, but I'll also listen to some top 40, but I just feel like it reconnects me, it grounds me, it kind of makes me feel like I'm present and alive. So what kind of music do you like to listen to, Joanna?
I like country music, and I know it's a little bit, people have mixed feelings, but I'm already listening to Christmas music. I'm super into Christmas music, and so November 1st hits and I take off with my Christmas music. So, and yeah, Steve is always he's our resident DJ. So any staff meeting, he always plays some tunes for us. Let's see, I'm also seeing Dancing with the Stars, any feel-good shows. I'm definitely loving the feel good shows right now because I don't need anything that's more stressful. So I've kind of cut back on any like high drama, suspense type shows because I just want something to kind of make me feel good and escape.
Yeah, The Voice is a really good show to watch too. You know, there's some songs that they'll play and you're like, oh, that just hit me. It just hit me, like really hit my soul. So it just makes you feel good, you know?
Masked Singer is a good one too.
Oh yeah, that was a good show too, right? Like, I mean, these are all like different musics. I know it's almost Christmas time, and I think you also mentioned that you like to start to turn on the Christmas tunes already. It's always a good time to just kind of get those new Christmas spirits in, you know, going. M. Anguiano 712 mentioned in 2020 Christmas holidays start now. So yeah, getting into the holiday spirit, I think that's always a really nice thing to engage with, you know. It kind of just reminds you of family, the food, the kind of like the weather, the coldness of it, you know, the little fireplace going on. I think those are all like good feels, right? So what, and I know we also mentioned like spiritual affinity or spiritual practices. These are all good ways to kind of like engage with stress and anxiety. I know that today we're celebrating Dia de los Muertos. So for those of you who do practice Dia de los Muertos, it's a good opportunity for you to reconnect with your ancestors, your loved ones. If you did set up an altar, that's also like a spiritual practice that you can engage with and remember them, put their picture on the altar, perhaps maybe place a little food on there. Kind of like a good distraction of like what might be going on with elections and just taking some time to feel grounded.
Yeah, we watched Coco. My kids had Coco on earlier today, and it's definitely a fun distraction.
And then somebody mentioned all the lights, all the Christmas lights. Yes, those are always nice to see. So, you know, perhaps, you know, I don't know if there's anybody in the neighborhoods already have Christmas lights, but you can probably drive around to see if anybody has them up yet, so you can start feeling a little bit more into the spirit. But movies is something that we didn't mention. You mentioned Coco. I think I saw Coco last night on Freeform too. I don't know if that's the same one that we saw.
Oh yeah.
But any other movies that people like to watch as a way to kind of manage stress and anxiety, or any other kind of practices that you do at home? Drop your comments here and we'll kind of give you a shout out. We'll let others know what you engage with. You know, but moving a little forward, we also identified healthy distractions, right? And then we also talked about engaging in cultural strengths and values. So I know that all of us have different traditions, beliefs, and practices that we engage with. Perhaps reminding you of what, like, some of the family fun activities that you do at home. Some personal beliefs that you have that you feel like, wow, this really does help me distress and feel like I'm less anxious. Any cultural traditions that you engage with, Joanna, at home?
Oh man, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of anything. We do a lot of different things for Thanksgiving typically, and it's going to look a little different this year. Unfortunately, with COVID, I think that it's just going to change the family dynamics a lot. But we definitely do a lot for Christmas too, as far as looking at the lights. And Thanksgiving's typically a time we have like both sets of family over and do a big thing. But again, this year's going to look a little different. I know one thing too, I've heard that for tomorrow, some schools are going to be out. And so that might be some time too that people can find something intentional to do with their kids, if they have kids, just to do something really distracting, to maybe not spend the day watching TV or watching the news, to maybe do something I know you mentioned the weather's supposed to be nice tomorrow, so maybe getting out and doing something with the kids if you can, just to, again, kind of turn your attention away from some of the stress of what's going on.
And I think that's something that we all have in common, right? Being able to spend time with family. I know that in the Latino culture, familismo, or family, is like a cultural core strength and value that we engage with, at least that my family engages with. So knowing that I have their support and I can talk to them and they can be there for me, I think that's a great way that I can reduce stress and anxiety, especially when tomorrow we're about to find out, you know, who becomes the next president. So hopefully those are some other ways that you can engage and managing the election-based stress and anxiety. So please don't forget to visit our virtual Zendan. Please come by and make an appointment at Student Counseling Center services Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. Don't forget to identify the activities, hobbies, any type of music or religious or spiritual practices that you engage with, so that you can manage any stress that's coming along with the election. And then also, most importantly, like we mentioned a little while ago, family, perhaps support systems that are friends, best friends, close-knit family ties that you have with other people can also serve as ways that you can feel a little bit more present and less stress and anxiety during the election time. And then is that Sarah Tim? That's Tim, I think it is.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Kind of about how to approach the conversation of the election with younger children. And I do think that's really important. And it's going to be something I think that everyone's going to handle a little differently depending on their parenting style. But I know this is even a conversation that I had with my 4-year-old yesterday. We were driving to her grandparents' house and saw a Trump parade that was going on through the whole city on the highway. And so of course she's saying, oh, what's going on here? You know, there's flags. And so we were explaining, well, election is coming up, and this is what that means, kind of in a term that she could understand, you know, saying that it's kind of like we're picking the next king, because, you know, she's always watching shows with kings and queens, and said, you know, so some people really want this person to be the king, and some people really want a different person to be the king. And so they're showing their support for who they want to be the king. And so I think, you know, for at least for me and the way that I approach parenting, I try to be as honest as I can to help my children understand at a level that's appropriate for them. And then answering questions is appropriate. She actually really didn't have any questions besides that. It was just like, oh, okay, well, who's going to be the new king? And we're like, well, we'll wait and see. But again, I think it's really important at the age that they are. But in my opinion, I think trying to be as honest as you can with children can be helpful. I don't think it's best to kind of try and shield them or lie to them about things, because it's helpful, I think, for them to be able to kind of make their own decisions, even at a young age, about kind of what they believe and how they see the world work. But I would really encourage, no matter how you approach it with children, to really try and prioritize and highlight their safety, and them knowing that even in the midst of maybe some chaos, that they're safe at home, and that you're going to protect them as much as you can. Because I think, especially with what kids may or may not see on the news, it could be very unsettling and feel unsafe. And so I think, and safety is something we're going to talk about as well here in a bit, but that's, I think, really important for kids as well, is to know their sense of safety. And in some ways, I'm glad that some of the kiddos are staying home tomorrow from school.
Yeah, you know, I know my own, but I do have several nieces and nephews who are going to school now. And they discussed that during their classroom time, that some students will talk about the election, Trump or Biden or Harris, you know, and Pence. And I think asking them, right, if you wanted to, you know, as a parent, you can ask them and say, hey, what have you heard about, like, the election? Are people talking about it at school? What are some of the kids saying at school? What do you feel? How do you think about that? Or perhaps you can be an example, or like a serving kind of like point where they're able to kind of ask questions with you. And then, you know, you probe questions as well and let them know, well, how is that impacting you? How are you feeling? What's coming up for you? What are you thinking about that? So I think it could be a collaborative experience between both parent and children. I'm pretty sure the kids are already having these conversations at school already based on what they hear from their parents. And so it could be a little confusing for them, but I think it'd be helpful for parents to also be able to share their thoughts on like what might be going on and what's occurring. And I think Joanna made an excellent point. Just kind of letting them know that this is an experience for everybody to be engaging with, but also that it could be like a way for them to be safe, right? And to be informed to the best that they can. And I think informing in a way that they can understand at their level. So. Okay,
do we want to move on to the next question, Steve?
Yeah, we can. hopefully that was helpful, Sarah. Let us know if you have any other follow-up questions, okay? All right. So the next question is, how can I cope if the candidate that I don't want to win wins the election?
Yeah, I think this is a common question that's on everyone's mind at this point. A few points that I think are important. One is to really surround yourself with supportive people. That may or may not be necessary. It doesn't have to be people that necessarily see eye to eye with you or agree with you politically, but at least people that are supportive and that are safe. It might be, and even maybe taking a mental health day or a break if you need to. Being able to do what you need to take care of yourself in this time, I think, is really important. And setting healthy boundaries with the people in your life. And for yourself, you know, maybe that is limiting the amount of time that you're spending on social media, limiting the amount of time that you're spending watching the news. But that can also be setting boundaries with other people in your life. If you know, you see that aunt call you tomorrow that you know what she's going to be talking about, maybe don't answer it. Maybe send a text and say, hey, I'll give you a call next week. I can't talk today. To just be able to kind of set some boundaries for yourself to not necessarily expose yourself to too much additional stress from people. I know social media is going to be a pretty heated place over the next few days. So some people have just decided to step away from social media for a while, because I think that's where you're going to see a lot of the different people kind of bragging about their candidate's victory or whatnot. And then going back to some of the coping skills that we talked about earlier that Steve mentioned, to be able to take care of yourself, lean into the things that can bring you joy, and reaching out to resources. One thing I did want to highlight as far as resources with our services right now, because of COVID, we're doing most of our services either through phone or through WebEx. So if you are interested or need support from us, please call us. That would be the most recommended way to get in touch with us. And we do have crisis appointments available, as Steve mentioned. So give us a call if you need us. And the number is 210-784-1331. And so we're here for you guys. We want to be able to support y'all in the midst of this additional stress. And so please reach out to us tomorrow or in the next few days if you need that additional support. But I think those are some of the things that come to mind, of really just being able to make sure you have your boundaries in place. Maybe not overextending yourself with responsibilities over the next few days, and kind of being really strategic about who you spend time with. If you can. Obviously, there's some situations where you have to be around certain people, but maybe it's closing your office door, or again, maybe not answering that phone call or that text message. Any other thoughts, Steve?
You know, I think I'm thinking about like the healthy boundaries. I think I just want to echo what you said earlier. A lot of the times we get most of our news through social media. So, you know, if, you know, the candidate that you don't want to win wins the election, I wonder what would it be like for you to take a break or disconnect from social media for a little bit. Perhaps engage in some of the hobbies or fun activities that you like to do. And then I think healthy boundaries, you know, I was thinking about like ways on how I can, you know, just engage in activities that I like to do that are fun. I know there's going to be like so much going on around and you want to find out, and you want to learn more. It's okay to, you know, engage a little bit with the news if you'd like. But please know that you could also set some good boundaries so that you're not consumed so much entirely in the election process. So as of now, we don't even know, right, if we're going to have a clear winner at the end, since there's so many like ballots being counted. So this could be extended a few days. So just have a plan, right? Think about what would you do in the next few days if we haven't decided yet who won the election. So those are all good ways that you can engage. I know that all of us right now are students, right? And so one of the most important things that we need to focus on is academics. So that's one thing that you know that you do have control over, making sure that you do well in school. So perhaps redirect your energy to getting an A on the next exam or the next assignment versus the election, because that's not going to give you a good grade. So, you know, just kind of trying to relate the situation that is personal to most of y'all, which I think all of you right now hold the identity of being a student on campus.
Okay, thanks. So moving on to our next question. The next question is, how can I cope if others react negatively post-election results?
So I know that one of the things that we were able to identify, and I think a lot of other resources include keeping a distance from negative conversations or situations, right? If you know that there are groups of people who may or may not be talking really positively about the election results or perhaps the election day, it's okay to be able to just kind of navigate and just, you know, redirect your energy towards another path. There's no need to engage. We don't want you to feel more stress or more anxiety or just feel maybe anger or other sense of emotions that will impact your daily functioning. So being able to keep the distance is important. And although sometimes we might feel safe in certain groups, just know that any conversations could come up and could be a triggering factor for you. That could happen in family. That could also happen with friends. So just know, you know, that keeping your distance is okay. And perhaps maybe identify a safe place or a place where you feel like you can just kind of release or let go during that moment. So you don't have to just be stuck in one spot. Be aware of your internal experience, right? So sometimes we might have different reactions of like what people are saying. And usually when we hear something, it might be more heightened than it really is. But because we are in a season of election and there's just so many emotions going on right now, anything could, you know, push us on the edge and make us feel a little bit different and maybe not react in a positive way. So listen to your internal, I don't know, I guess feeling. We can call it a gut feeling. We call it intuition. We can, however you want to define it. But, you know, just make sure that you listen to it. If you feel like you're getting a little kind of upset or angry about what's being talked about, then you can go back to the point that we made earlier, distance yourself and perhaps find another path to feel more grounded. And then focus on what is your control versus what is not. So the $1 million kind of awareness. Do you actually have control of who is going to win the election? Right? Can you go in there and say, this person's going to win or this person? No, we don't, right? Well, what you do have control over is if you have an exam the following day on November 4th, make sure that you study November 3rd so that you can get a good grade. So you actually have control over that, right? What's another thing you have control over? Making sure that you get up early for work next day if you need to go, right? Or perhaps you have a class in the morning that you need to attend. Those are things that you actually do have control over versus who's going to win and who's not going to win. You also don't have control of what people say out loud and what they don't say out loud, or any negative messages they might be emitting into the environment or the community or amongst each other. But you do have control of being able to remove yourself from the situation and create distance if you need to, right? So focus on what is in your control versus what is not. Those are really good strategies to raise awareness on like what you can do in the moment to feel safe, right? And that goes on to the next point, safety. We know that currently, you know, there's different opposing sides. Joanna mentioned earlier in the conversation that we've had so many race-based incidents happen. We know that COVID-19 is also happening right now. There's so many different messages of people of opposing parties that are kind of going back and forth. You know, I think it's really important for you to be able to identify a safe space for you to feel good, and also being able to navigate in an environment that feels good and healthy to you and doesn't kind of create more stress than you need to. Be able to identify resources, right? Like there's so many different cultural centers around San Antonio that you can use. A few that I can think of is the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center. You could also access the LGBTQ, the Pride Center in San Antonio. just different organizations or even clubs on campus that you can seek out that will be supportive of you in this time of, during this time of elections. And then, like we mentioned before, avoiding situations that might be unsafe. So I'm not sure if I can think of places that can be unsafe right now, but perhaps, if you're at home and you are watching the election and there's certain members of your family who don't support the candidate that you're supporting, it's okay to go to your room, right, if you need to, and watch it on your own or kind of distance yourself, or maybe go with some friends who are actually supporting the candidate that you support, right? So these are all good ways that you can engage in a healthy environment post-election results. Anything that you might want to add, Joanna?
I think you really hit everything on the head. I really appreciate that piece of focusing on what is in your control versus what's not. I think in a time where there are a lot of things that are outside of our control, it's easy to focus on those things rather than the things that are in my control. Maybe it is in my control that I could take a sick day tomorrow if I felt like I needed to, or maybe it is in my control that I don't get on social media for the next week, or it's also my control of how I respond and how I react to the people in my life, to my neighbors, to the people that I know don't agree with me politically. That's something that I can control. And so really trying to focus on those things, and that really ties into that internal experience as well. If I'm aware of what my internal experience is, it's going to help me to be able to more positively interact with other people and not let maybe some of the negative energy that's happening inside of me spill out onto other people, especially the people I care about and love. So I think that that's huge. And I think safety is going to look different for everybody. But I do think just being aware of your situations over, the next week or so, and doing what you might need to do just to make sure that you do feel safe, whether that's physically or emotionally. I think those are really great points.
Awesome. So our next question is, what suggestions do you have for students who might be triggered by the news, media outlets, or social media platforms?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the things that we've talked about already apply here. As far as good boundaries, maybe setting some limits for yourself. I know nowadays, even our devices have some different ways to help us with that. Like on an iPhone, you can set limits on how much you spend on certain apps or even certain websites per day. So maybe it's not realistic for you to say, hey, I'm not going to look at social media at all for the next week, but maybe it's like, hey, I think I'm only going to look at it for 30 minutes a day, and I'm going to set a tight, a limit on my phone for that. Or maybe, some people decide to watch the TV on mute while they're watching the election results, for example. And so maybe they're not getting some of that constant dialogue going, but they're still able to kind of see what's happening. I think doom scrolling is kind of a new thing that we've heard about lately, but we probably are all guilty of it, of maybe we're just sitting there scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and just looking at all this negativity and all this different type of news that we're being bombarded with. And so I think that unfortunately it kind of it reinforces that behavior to some extent, that when we see stuff, it's like, well, what else? What's next? And so I think that that's where having some of those limits for yourself can be really helpful. More so right now than probably any time. But then also doing other things, like just finding some distractions, like we talked about earlier, doing some things that maybe it's doing a board game or a puzzle or playing a video game, just something to turn my attention away from that constant information overload. I think those are some really good things. Looks like we've had a couple of new people join in. Hello, everybody. Feel free to post any questions that you might have in the comments. We're going through some kind of preset questions, but if we have time, we'll answer any other questions you guys have. We're glad to see you guys here, and you can always go back and watch the full length of the video later. We will have that posted. So thank you guys again for joining in. Any other thoughts that you might have, Steve, as far as kind of social media limits?
I think you hit it right on the nail, to be honest with you. I know that we talked about it before. Just another thing that I want to include is there's no limits, right, to like distractions or any other type of engagement that you can, use for self-care and grounding. Whatever you feel like is fun and makes you feel happy, that's what you should be doing, So don't forget about those strengths that you have, okay?
All right, so let's move on to the next question. And this one for you, Steve, is how can I safely remove myself from an uncomfortable political conversation with family, friends, peers, colleagues? What can I say?
That makes me just like want to leave and go to the other room. But no, you can do a lot of different things. One thing that's coming to mind is, we're all students, so I feel like you can easily say, I have to do homework, so I'm gonna go to the library or I'm gonna go to like a different spot to study. I feel like that would be a good kind of little excuse to kind of get you out. I have a group meeting. We all have group work sometimes in classes, right? So that can easily be another thing that you can do. Perhaps maybe even act like you're in a phone call, maybe just listening to music while you're doing homework and they don't really know what's going on, right? But you're allowing yourself and you're putting some distance between those difficult conversations that might come up with friends, family, or peers, right? Another thing is that you can just be forthcoming and interpersonally just state out loud and say, I don't want to talk about politics right now. We can talk about something else if you'd like, right? There's nothing wrong with being able to firmly say what you might need in the moment, right? As long as it's a healthy conversation and you're engaging with it in a positive way, why not, right? Just the kind of like another perspective for different personalities that we have in the JAG fam. And then watch the election results by yourself or with a safe and supportive people, right? I know a few friends who have watched elections in the past and they rather not have any distractions, not hear any negative comments, so they will report back to the friend group once the election is over and once they feel ready to engage. So you can do the same. There's nothing wrong with that. Or you could also join a watch party, right? If anybody's hosting a watch party to find out the elections and that's a group of people who you feel safe and comfortable with, why not? I think that would be like a good way for you to process and just kind of engage with when you're with them. And the last one, I think we mentioned it before, remove yourself from the situation if needed. We talked about distancing yourself from negative conversations or situations. Perhaps there's a heated conversation going on about the different candidates that are running, then you can probably just, say, I'm going to go do homework, or I'm going to go to a group meeting, or just say, I don't want to talk about politics right now, like we mentioned before. So those are all kind of good ways that you can, safely remove yourself from an uncomfortable political conversation. Joanna, I don't know if there's any other thoughts that you have about that. What's another thing that you would do?
Yeah, I think the only thing that the only thought that I had was how you had talked about earlier that we can't control what anyone else does, but we can control how we respond. And so I do think that really rings true even with this, that I can't tell somebody, well, you can't talk to me about the election. They can talk about it all day, but you can say, if you continue to talk about the election, I'm going to have to end the phone call, or I'm going to have to leave the room. You can say that these are kind of my boundaries for me. And I think that's important to be able to know that I can kind of control what I allow in my life. And so I think that's a good response, to be able to just remember that you can set some guidelines for what you're going to allow for you, even though you can't tell other people what they need to do. So, All right. Well, we have a few more minutes. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to either put them in the question mark, or you can. Or you can put them in the comment box. And also just curious to hear from any of you guys if you just have any feedback or thoughts in general about the discussion that we've had today regarding mental health and politics. We're so glad that you guys have been able to join in. I did post our phone number in the chat as well. Another thing to be aware of, in our bio on our Instagram page, you can find a link tree that has all kinds of resources. There's a link to the virtual Zindan, which we mentioned earlier as a resource. It has a lot of different calming self-care techniques. There's also a link to our main website, crisis text line, the suicide prevention hotline. So there's all kinds of good resources there that might be of support to you guys. So you can find all of those in our link tree on our bio.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, unless we'll hang out maybe for another minute or two. But again, thank you all so much for joining us today. We're glad to be able to have this conversation. It's a very important conversation, to know that you're not alone if you do find yourself struggling or feeling a little more anxious right now, not only with the election, but everything else that we've faced in 2020. I think that's a conversation I'm continuously having with students, is just that, you know, we've never navigated a pandemic before. So give yourself a little grace that this has been a really hard year. And so I think it's important to give ourselves some compassion.
And if you know of anybody who would like more information on how to self-care or help, you know, throughout this election process, please be sure to redirect them to the TAMUSA Student Counseling. Add us on social media, Instagram, send us an email, or any other kind of social media platform that you can connect with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Dwena, S. Tim, Star, M. Anguiano. We really appreciate your presence today.
Yes. All right.
And thank you so much to Joanna for having this conversation with me. I think it was a really, really fun way to be able to promote mental health and politics.
Yes.
Today.
And if you guys have any other suggestions on anything you might like to see us talk about in a similar fashion, we are going to hopefully maybe launch some more Instagram lives moving forward. So definitely let us know if there's anything that you think might be helpful for us to talk about in a similar type setup, because we're very open to suggestions.
Yes.
All right. Well, y'all have a good rest of your day and take care of yourself this week.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.